Good morning, viewers. This is Global Entertainment News TV. I am your host, Busola, and welcome to our newspaper review segment. Let's start with the punch. Why INEC vote count can't be accurate, says Jonathan. Why INEC vote count can't be accurate, says Jonathan. Moving on to the next. Ex-president decries ghost voters, regional influences, seek electoral reforms. Ex-president decries ghost voters, regional influences, seeks electoral reforms. Moving on to the next. Tax reform. Senate plans review as customs ASU's fault provisions. Senate plans review as customs ASUU fault provisions. Moving on to the next. Afenifere backs Kalu, says declaring Abiola president long overdue. Afenifere backs Kalu, says declaring Abiola president long overdue. Up to the next. South-South governors move against Wike's camp over PDP Congress crisis. South-South governors move against Wike's camp over PDP Congress crisis. Up to the next. Nigeria's World Bank debt may hit $9.2 billion as FGI's six loans. Nigeria's World Bank debt may hit $9.2 billion as FGI's six loans. To the next headline. Obasa awaiting ruling before returning to assembly, says lawyer. Obasa awaiting ruling before returning to assembly, says lawyer. Moving on to the next. Senate backs Akpabio as Natasha files n100.3 billion defamation suit. Senate back Akpabio as Natasha files n100.3 billion defamation suit. Up to the next. APC dismisses anti-Danjude plot as El-Rufai absent from NEC meeting. APC dismisses anti-Danjude plot as El-Rufai absent from NEC meeting. That's it for the punch. We move to the Vanguard. Insecurity. How lack of surveillance tech aids criminals, terrorists. Insecurity. How lack of surveillance tech aids criminals, terrorists. Moving on to the next. FG's reforms responsible for rise in oil production, says Tinubu. FG's reforms responsible for rise in production, says Tinubu. Moving on to the next. Lagos Assembly crisis. Meranda agrees to step down if, says source. Lagos Assembly crisis. Meranda agrees to step down if, says source. To the next headline. El-Rufai hurt because he wasn't made minister, says presidency. El-Rufai hurt because he wasn't made minister, says presidency. Moving on to the next. Plot against Muritala Muhammed started from day one, says IBB. Plot against Muritala Muhammed started from day one, says IBB. Up to the next. June 12 annulment. I will change my prosecution by IBB, says Falana. June 12 annulment. I will challenge my prosecution by IBB, says Falana. Moving on to the next. Customs raises concern over tax reform bill. Customs raises concern over tax reform bills. Up to the next. US exclude UK, Nigerian, others from visa-free entry for 2025. US excludes UK, Nigeria, others from visa-free entry for 2025. Moving on to the next. I have never discussed running for president in 2031 with anybody, says Ribadu. I have never discussed running for president in 2031 with anybody, says Ribadu. That's it for the Vanguard. We move to the Nation. Service, petrol refining sectors propel GDP growth to 3.84%. Service, petrol refining sectors propel GDP growth to 3.84%. Moving on to the next. 1.5 million candidates registered for UTME. 1.5 million candidates registered for UTME. Up to the next. Natasha sues Akpabio, others for 100.3 billion naira. Natasha sues Akpabio, others for 100.3 billion naira. Moving on to the next. Attack on APC, Tinubu, presidency ribadu, Omokri, Chage El-Rufai. Attack on APC, Tinubu, presidency ribadu, Omokri, Chage El-Rufai. Up to the next. Why IOCs won't leave Nigeria by local brew. Why IOCs won't leave Nigeria by local brew. Up to the next. Teachers jailed for raping pupils. Teachers jailed for raping pupils. Moving on to the next. FCCPC invites multi-choice CEO over DSTV subscription hike. FCCPC invites multi-choice CEO over DSTV subscription hike. That's it for the nation. We move to the Guardian. Jonathan, Jega, carpet politicians, judiciary, INEC over flawed elections. Jonathan, Jega, carpet politicians, judiciary, INEC over flawed election. Moving on to the next headline. Tinubu okays 1 trillion naira financing for states to strengthen PHCs. Tinubu okays 1 trillion naira financing for states to strengthen PHCs. To the next one. EFCC arraigns 16 Chinese for alleged cyber terrorism, internet fraud in Lagos. EFCC arraigns 16 Chinese for alleged cyber terrorism, internet fraud in Lagos. Up to the next. Natasha sues Akpabio, aid 100.3 billion naira for alleged defamation as Senate considers punishment. Natasha sues Akpabio, other aides 100.3 billion naira for alleged defamation as Senate considers punishment. Moving on to the next. APC begins 2027 groundwork as Tinubu, governors, party leaders meet on internal crisis. APC begins 2027 groundwork as Tinubu, governors, party leaders meet on internal crisis. Moving on to the next. IBB revelation, Igbo group demand 100 trillion naira compensation from Nidigbo. IBB revelation, Igbo groups demand 100 trillion naira compensation from Nidigbo. To the next headline. Belgium fears losing 40% petrol exports to Nigeria as Tinubu woos investors. Belgium fears losing 40% petrol exports to Nigeria as Tinubu woos investors. Moving on to the next. Court remands Lagos Assembly worker for alleged assault on DSS officer. Court remands Lagos Assembly worker for alleged assault on DSS officers. That's it for our newspaper review segment. Thank you for joining.